Hey guys, how you all doing today? I have got an interesting thing. I have an extinct instrument. It's an instrument that kind of has disappeared. It was here for a while, and then it wasn't. So, kind of a neat thing, new idea. You can see from the box, it's that is an old box. I found this a couple years ago at a used music store, like a store that sells old instruments. It's called the Bedford Banjo Shop in Bedford, Pennsylvania. I just found out they went out of business this year. They closed their doors, and that's a shame. I loved that place. It was great. But they sold me this for $15. So what do you get this old for $15? Found out why. It is called a Ukelin. Right? Got a couple of these things. We have, I'll dig it out of here and get the box out of the way. This is a Eucalyn, right? Kind of an interesting instrument. Take that off of there. These were invented sometime in the 1920s. It's a form of bowed psaltery, right? It's hard to say who invented it because several companies filed their patents, at the same time. So, or right around the same time. So it's hard to say who originally came up with it. But this is, I think Ukelin is supposed to be like ukulele violin, which it doesn't look like either of those things. Not really. Like I said, it's a type of bowed psaltery. And what a psaltery is, you can see it has these strings that go down to different points on the instrument, so that you can bow each one with like a violin bow. Psalteries are very old types of instruments, very ancient, and this is kind of a take on that. Now they sold these pretty heavily through the 30s and into the 40s, and they stopped making them at a certain point. Most of the companies that made them stopped making them in the 60s. I think the last ones manufactured were like 1972. But most of them by early 60s, people had stopped making them. And the reason why is they marketed these as a beginner's instrument, something to learn music on. It was, people were told that it would be easy to play, and, it's not. It's not as easy as they made it out to be. I mean, it's not a difficult instrument to play, but you can see it's got a lot of strings. This one is in fairly good shape overall. I can hear there's junk inside there, but I'm not going to take the time to clean it all up and fix it. I can play it for you a little bit, give you an idea, but it's not exactly in tune, and broke a couple strings on it trying to tune it up. New strings for this, because you can see how many strings there are. There are a lot of strings. So it's a bit expensive, because you have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 2 octaves on the bowed end. And you have 4 sets of 4 strings making chords down here. And how it's played is you'd strum the chords with that side. You can tell, not exactly in tune. And then you would bow this end. It came with a little bow, a music stand. You can see this little wire. With this, it's got 2 little holes in it. You'd set it right there so that you could lay it on your lap like this, see, and rest your music on that little stand. Right, now you can see this bow doesn't have any hair on it. It's old, it's beat up. This even came with the original little things that came in it. There's a sales pitch to buy a case for your Ukelin, which they apparently did not, and the directions for playing the Ukelin. This is Oscar Schmidt International Corporation, but this says it was manufactured by Advertising Co. So it's similar address. This is 93 Ferry Street and Oscar Schmidt is 87-101 Ferry Street, Jersey City, New Jersey. So I'm assuming Oscar Schmidt sold these, that this was sold by them. You can see it's got songs. You can put them right there on your little stand and play songs. And a bowed psaltery, like I said, let's get the stand out of the way. You can see where you would and that's where it starts going really out of tune. You can hear it's not too bad. I bought this a couple years ago and I tuned it up as closely as I could at the time. And I looked at what it would cost for strings. And some people would give you a list of, buy 2 sets of banjo strings and 3 sets of mandolin strings and 2 sets of guitar strings, and you'd end up with strings left over. I found one place that sold just sets of Eucalyn strings, one company that actually put it together in a set for Eucalyn, and those were like $85. So needless to say, I did not string it up because I'm not that interested in learning the Eucalyn. I just thought it was neat. And for $15, I'll buy a neat instrument. So you can still find these. I'm sure some of you have seen them at like antique stores and secondhand shops and that kind of stuff. Those junk stores, junk shops, stuff that has old things, old instruments. They made so many of them that you can still find them. Most people actually who bought them in the 30s, a lot of people returned them without even finishing paying for them. You know how you take out payments on something. And it's just people would get them, they were told they were easy to play, and then they'd find out they're not that easy to play, they were misled. And the instrument really was a flop. But they made a lot of them, and there are a lot of them running around out there still. This one is pretty old. It looks like it might be around World War II manufacture, something like that, maybe a little bit earlier. I didn't look, maybe I could find a date. All right, the directions are copyright 1925, which is when they first started manufacturing these. So maybe this is one of the early examples. I don't know. It looks pre-war, pre-World War II. So the Eucalyn's, it's kind of a neat instrument. It was neat to pick up. It was neat to get it, and I played around with it a little bit. The chords, let's see what you got here. You got C, G, D, and F. It looks pretty much what it is, so that you could play in C or G. It's diatonic, so all the strings are in like C major. I believe it's 2 octaves of C major. So you can kind of play in G as well. So it gives you some options. And the chords, obviously you can't finger anything. It's just open chords. See if I could get that to... Yeah, you can see where you have 4 different chords. And it's all labeled on there. All the notes and the chords, everything's labeled. You can see where you need a wrench to tune it. Not an easy process. And it's quite an instrument. It is, yes, quite an instrument, I would say. But it's kind of cool to check out. And it does make I don't know about the strummed chords. They sound neat. The bowed chords, strings, that kind of has a sweet sound, and you can hear how you get a lot of resonance from all the other strings, which is common in a bowed psaltery. Now, like I said, this is a type of psaltery. I've seen psalteries where people will hold them this way. And like I said, psalteries are very old instruments. Kind of like precursors to the violin. Psalteries like this would have 2, 3, even 4 octaves, a bunch of different octaves, and they were bowed like that. And eventually the violin, the idea was you could limit it all the way down to less strings because you put a neck on it where you can finger the strings and change the pitch that way. Instead of having to tune all these different strings, you only need a few strings. Modern violins have 4, but violins in the past had all sorts of numbers of strings. It wasn't exactly at one time set as to how the violin was made. So, early violins had different numbers of strings and they were tuned differently. But yeah, psalteries are a very old instrument. These are from the 20s and 30s primarily. And it's really kind of cool. I thought I'd share it with you, show you an extinct instrument. And it even smells old. I'm not the only one that goes around smelling instruments, just letting you know. I like the way old instruments smell. It's got a little musty, but anyway, not really worth the money or the time it would take to fix this up, even though it's in good condition. This one is fixable. If I restrung it, cleaned it a bit, it'd probably be a pretty good instrument. And maybe I will someday if I have the money. Because right now I don't have $85, $86, something like that, just to spend on strings. And if you buy all the different sets, like some places recommend, a set of banjo strings, a set of guitar strings, if you do all that, it comes out to $120 to $150 for strings. So, yeah, I don't have that kind of money to spend on an instrument. I'm probably not going to play that much, but it is neat. So, just thought I'd share it with you. If you see one of these, maybe pick it up. It's a nice conversation piece. It's neat to just, to just have. It's cool. You don't see them every day. You do see them a bit, though. Check out the antique stores. Anyway, hey, love you guys. Peace out. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.